Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the 1985 garage. In this episode, I'm going to be disassembling my Getrag 260 from my 1991 325iX. Since it's all-wheel drive, you'll notice that I will start the video by removing the transfer case. But don't worry, if you have a regular rear-wheel drive E30, then taking apart your transmission's gonna be almost exactly the same. This video is gonna be super long, guys, but I promise there'll be a lot of good content in here, especially if you're trying to take apart your transmission to replace bearings or seals, or if you just wanna know what's inside of it, or haven't ever taken one apart, then this video is for you guys. All right, let's get to work. These were loose. I also found one loose transmission bolt when I was taking that off too. Wonder if somebody maybe did that clutch before I owned it, before I bought it rather, because it still has a lot of material on it. It's pretty thick. Wondering if whoever put this back in didn't tighten all the bolts. First things first, guys, drain the transmission completely. When you pop this thing open, if you don't, oil is going to go everywhere. Ask me how I know. It's on most of them, I think it should be a 17 millimeter Allen. This is the drain bolt. Just drain it out. Then you can move on. Okay, so next, make sure you've got the release arm and throw out bearing out of here. Take this little clip out, pop it out. Yeah, it looks like that input shaft seal's been leaking for a while. Look at all that. That's the input shaft seal. That's all you have to do if that's all you're replacing is just take this off, press a new seal in, you're good to go. This is the part that I find to be the most difficult, is getting the snap ring off. It doesn't have any holes to grab. It's got little tapered pointed edges, and the Bentley manual says you're supposed to replace it anyway. So I usually end up just prying it out with like screwdrivers and stuff like that and bending it. But another thing to keep in mind is that there are different sizes of these to set the, I guess, preload. So make sure when you're putting these things back together you get the same size. Otherwise it's not gonna have the same, you know, end play as it did, which is pretty important. Another thing to note, guys, hear this sound? Guys, some of you probably have noticed when you have the clutch out, you hear this noise at idle. That's what's doing it. That bearing's worn. It's not bad, and honestly, it's just going to make that sound called the Getrag death rattle. But you can replace this input shaft bearing, and it should go away. There's just a little excessive play. But yeah, that's what you hear. Sounds bad, but it's fine. Spacer. Don't lose that or throw it on the floor like I just did. You for sure want to put that back in. Oh, I hate this part. There's like no good way to remove this. And I do have good snap ring pliers too. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll try something different this time. But this is what we got to remove next. This is the worst snap ring ever. You guys will agree with me if you ever try and take this off, but this is the best way I've found to remove it. I always try to get it off with a straight, I don't know, attachment for my snap ring pliers. I've got these channel locks. They're pretty heavy duty, 929s. So this time I put the, I want to say 90 degree, but that's not really 90 degree. These curved bits on it, and it seemed to come off a lot easier. So you gotta apply a lot of inward pressure, otherwise it'll just keep popping. I'm sorry, I didn't get it on video, but it is past the grooves right now, so I'm gonna slide that off. But yeah, it is one of the worst snap rings that I've ever tried to remove. So if you guys are doing it, just keep at it. It's gonna snap off a lot of times, your pliers are, but you'll eventually get it. I think this is the first one I've actually removed without stretching it way out. Because what I used to do is I'd have the straight bits on these channel locks, and I would open it up, and I couldn't open it up that far without it snapping. What I mean by snapping is it would basically roll off these edges and then just open up, and then the snap ring would just shut. Then I would stick a bunch of screwdrivers in these open gaps and just kind of roll it open, you know, but then the snap ring would be, you know, basically stretched out. But you're supposed to replace them anyway. I'm going to replace this one, but this just makes it a lot easier, at least this time around, with these curved bits on these channel locks. So good luck. This is the worst part about splitting the transmission, is getting the snap ring past the grooves. So after this, it's pretty easy. Okay guys, once you get your snap ring out of the way, there'll be a spacer behind it. Take that off as well. Don't lose them. Okay, next, we're going to be working on the side here. We're going to remove these two things, backup light switch and the selector shaft lock pin. Okay, so this is a 19 millimeter. Comes out like that, and then this thing just kind of pries out. Let me get something else here. Just wiggle it back and forth, it'll come out. Just like that. Now there's going to be a little spring and like a little pin in there that you've got to take out. I think I can grab it with a magnet. Yep, this guy. Okay, so this rod's got to come out of here. Pin, whatever you want to call it. It's got like a little roller bearing on the back of it. You'll see when I remove it, but the best way that I've found to remove this without damaging it is use a screw. Drywall screw, construction screw, deck screw, whatever. As long as you can kind of like, come on, focus. As long as you can drive it into that hole, but not too far. Don't go jamming this thing all the way in there, but just thread it into that hole. And then what you're gonna do is just grab it and pull it out. There it is. See, you're not damaging anything by putting this screw in here. It's not pressing against the roller or anything. It's almost like maybe they put that hole in there for that specific reason. I'm sure it's not, but that's how I take it out. Seems like it works every time. Doesn't damage it. Just makes it easier. Okay, so now there's a pin we've got to drive out on the back here. See if I can remember which one it is. Ah, it's this one. Okay, so it's this pin right here. You've got to drive it out this way. I'm gonna go grab a punch. Something like this will work. This is a 7/32 punch. It's got a long nose on it. Sure to hammer your thumb a couple times. There it goes, shooting off into my CHP wheel. That was pretty sweet. Onto the back of the transmission. Bunch of bolts on the back that need to come off. I believe they're 13 millimeter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of them. These things are pretty tight. Okay, I was wrong. There's 10 of them, not 11. And there's only one long bolt. So that one goes right up here, right next to the part where the shifter bolts to the right of it. I guess if you're looking at the back of the transmission. So, like I said, you're not going to be able to mix it up anyway. Okay, so honestly, there's only one more step besides attaching the tool and pressing it apart. It's to remove the reverse gear retaining bolts. And just like every other bolt, they're very tight, and my impact wrench is weak. So I believe you only have to take this one out, but I usually always take this one out too. So, I mean, it doesn't make that big of a difference. This holds the reversed idler shaft, I believe it's called, in place. You'll see once I open it. I always take them both out. I think Bentley says you only have to take this one out. Here comes the fun part. Okay, so like I said in the beginning, you've either got to buy the BMW special tool or make your own. Well, I chose to make my own. This is just hardware store stuff. So it's 1.25-inch pipe. This one's 6 inches. It's threaded on both sides. They call it a 1.25 by 6 nipple. This is a flange of some sort. I forget what they call it, but you'll see it. And then you need to buy one of these couplers. Screw that on there. You don't need to weld it. I did because I was using this to press a bearing out, this bottom piece, and I messed up the thread. So I had to, you know, put it back on here and weld it. It's a little crooked. So don't do that. Anyway, this part on top is for your 3-jaw puller to grab on. So that's what this piece is for. And also you need to notch out some sections to where you're going to put the bolts in there like that. So what I did was, when I got the flange, I put this guy on here and basically traced it, or I used a marker and marked the holes out and then dremeled them out. So that's what you're gonna have to do if you don't want to buy the BMW special tool, which I know nobody's going to. I don't even know if it's still available, and it's probably, I don't know, $400 or $500. This is like less than $10 maybe. So this is the ticket. So slap it on here. Use the bolts that you took off. I wish you guys could smell this. It smells so bad. It smells like burnt clutch mixed with burnt gear oil. It's pretty sweet. So grab your 3-jaw puller and attach it to this. This pointed point goes right into the divot on the input shaft. You'll see it. If that wasn't obvious. I only say that because sometimes things aren't very obvious to me. Okay, I'm going to get it tightened up here. Then I'm going to flip it on its side so you guys can see it coming apart. Alright guys, watch carefully. This is going to be exciting. You can start to see it separating. I'm pretty sure this was the holdup. There's this pin right here, and unlike the top one, it doesn't have a hole that you can punch it out. So if you find it starting to get hard to tighten the 3-jaw puller and the case isn't splitting anymore, take a punch and just hit this side of it. And I just did that and it just split wide open. So it's under a lot of tension. You guys comment below how many times you think I just hit my thumb during this whole video. Well, there you go. That's how you remove the case, the front case. This is the bearing that I'm thinking is bad. This one. There's another one on the other side of it. Alright guys, next you got to remove the nut on the back. I always use inch and 3/16 socket. I know it's not metric, but it still matches up. I think it's 32, but it's got to be thin wall. Fits pretty good. Also, I can tell someone's already been in here at one point because there's no lock plate on here. If you guys are doing this and nobody's messed with it, there'll be a little plate in here that you got to pry out. It just goes around here to prevent this from loosening up. There's a rear output shaft seal. Gonna replace that too. You can take this bolt out before you take the front bell housing and the case off, or you can take it off now. It really doesn't matter. It just holds the reverse idler in. So that's got to come out. This bracket has got to come out that holds the reverse gear. So that's a 13. Okay, that's going to stay in there for a little bit. Just kidding, it comes out now. Okay, if you haven't taken this off, it needs to come off now. Okay, just move this band out of the way and then punch this pin out. And it comes off just like that. Okay, now all you do is pull up on this pin, take it out, don't lose it. Take this little bow tie looking guy out of there. Okay guys, next you've got to engage fourth gear if you're not already. This is fourth gear, so the synchro hub's got to be over these teeth here. So you can grab your punch, kind of operate the selector lever back here. If it doesn't go in, just keep turning the input shaft. Can be kind of difficult. There we go. See how it's engaged? Okay. Now we got to take this roll pin out. You want to drive it down far enough to where it doesn't come out the bottom, but far enough to where the shaft is free of this lever. So tap a little bit at a time, wiggle this until you see that it's free, and then push it out. There you go. Okay guys, I forgot to mention that there's 4 bearings on the selector shaft on the back here. So when you're pushing this shaft out, make sure that these don't drop off. If they do, just put them back on, but just don't lose them. See, there goes one. Hey-o! Looks like I've lost one, so I should probably take my own advice. Okay, pull that out. This has got to come off next. 2 10s. There's 3 springs in there. 3 balls. Got to get those out. If you hold a magnet over top of the hole and then wiggle the shaft that the ball is riding on, it'll come right out. Okay, this is gonna fall out. Okay, now you're gonna remove the roll pin from the 4th gear selector rod. So to get this out, you got to remove the end cap right here. If you push it in and turn it, you can pull it right out. And if you're lucky, you might be able to reuse it. There's a ball in there that you got to take out. Yikes. Okay, 4th gear rod. There's 2 balls in the bore here, 2 detent balls. Take those out. Just put them with your little end cap so you know where they go. Okay, so before you press on the output shaft with your 3-jaw puller, you're going to want to do 2 things. You want to engage reverse gear. This is reverse gear right here. See how it goes in a different direction than all the other gears? So you want the synchro hub to go this way towards the input shaft. Just click it into gear, into reverse gear. And then you're also going to want to engage 2nd gear, which is this. So, see if I can do this with one hand. 2nd gear, bam. Now you can pull it out. Or push it out, rather. So this is what I'm going to be using to push the output shaft through the case. It's basically the linkage of 2 3-jaw pullers put together. because I don't have the right one, but I'm going to make do with what I got here. You're going to want to put it on the case. I'll show you in a minute. But put something between the case and the jaw here. Plastic, wood, anything, because you don't want to scratch this part up here. Oops. You're going to be grabbing on here. You don't want to mar up that surface, because if you do, it's going to make it hard to seal up with, you know, you're going to put gasket sealer in here, so don't put a big old dent in it and then watch it leak after you put it back together. Check that out. Cardboard zip tied around the jaws. Might actually work. Let's see what happens. It's going. Easy, easy. Sweet. That goes right about there. This is a rear countershaft bearing. Sweet. That's how you remove the gear train and a Getrag from an E30. Alright guys, I know I said I was just going to replace the countershaft bearings, but I changed my mind. I'm going to do the input and output shaft bearing because I figured might as well. I'm already in there. I really don't want to hear this thing start whining again first time I take off and then be mad at myself because I didn't replace the bearings while I was already in there. So I'm going to get that on camera too. Yeah, let's get started. Okay guys, here we go. I'm going to do the output shaft bearing first. So this is the rear housing. Got to take some bolts out. All right, start by taking this bolt out. On the other side, you can see it's a plunger with a spring around it. And it pushes on this lever. Okay, to get to this bolt, you've got to press this lever to the right and also this lever to the right, and then you can get in there. Then this whole thing comes out. Okay, take a heat gun and basically heat up around the bearing. It's going to help get this bearing out because the housing is basically going to expand a little bit. The bearing is going to stay the same size, and then you're going to carefully punch it out from the back. Also, if your seal is still in, take that out. It's going to be in the way if you don't. See ya. Careful with these seal pullers, guys. If you go in too far, you're going to nick the side of the bore that the seal rides in, then you're going to have a real bad day. Okay, see a spacer that falls out with a bearing that goes behind it. Make sure you hang on to that. There's your bearing. Yeah, I'm glad I'm replacing it because it does sound kind of like it does when I'm driving. Whiny. So. Okay, so I figured I better do it the right way on my press. I'm going to put the old bearing on top of the new bearing. It's kind of like a pressing guide, I guess. And I'm going to use the special tool we pulled the case halves apart with, which ironically is how I bent it in the first place. Okay, I gotta move the tool because it's hitting a lever. That's not what the popping sound was, by the way. Perfect. Okay guys, I'm going to end the video here. It's getting pretty long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another video for reassembly. One thing that you guys probably noticed is that I didn't press in the input shaft bearing yet, and that's because it's basically one of the very last steps that you do when you're reassembling the transmission. You can't put it in before you put the front case half back on. You actually put the transmission back together, the two case halves, and then you press the bearing in. So you'll see that in the next video. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys, or at least interesting. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.